a few years ago, I decided I wanted to write a book. I'd always wanted to write a book, so I decided kind of on a whim that I was going to do it. And I decided to write about nihilism because I had this experience with nihilism, just found myself in a very nihilistic place, and I was pretty much acting like it. And I realized that the only thing that really kept me from behaving in more degenerate behavior was fear of consequences. I was aware that the only limit on my morality or immorality, for the most part, was fear of consequences. Although I think that was not entirely accurate. I was pretty lost, but I never really, I always, I still maintained a sympathy for for animals, and I never got completely lost, you know. But I decided I wanted to write this book, and I started writing it because I thought that I had figured some things out. And through writing the book, I realized that I had not actually figured anything else out in regards to a counter to nihilism. I had just been more socially acceptably, or I'd been more, I just found a way to be essentially distracted in a more socially acceptable manner. I felt like I'd figured some things out, but I hadn't. And through writing this book, I realized I needed to figure those things out, and I became stuck. And I was stuck in this book, and I was stuck in life. And but I was just working. There's still basic things that I felt like I needed to deal with. And then at one point, I got some time, and I felt like I needed some motivation or whatever. So I went down to Mexico to climb Pico de Orizaba, which is the tallest mountain in Mexico. And that type of thing for the past few years had been one of the distractions that I engaged in. So I went down and climbed the mountain in Mexico, and I found myself at about 18,000 feet, probably just a few hundred feet in elevation from the summit. I was You do it all in one day. I mean, we started at like midnight, and you go up and you go down. So I was supposed to be able to get the summit in one day, and I was cruising. You get to the top of the mountain, and it's all ice. It's basically like glaciated on top, and I was just cruising up there. Me and this other guy who I'd met down there. We were going up. There's a good amount of people on the mountain, and we were passing people, but we were going too fast, and we both kind of just got like burnt out. I hadn't hydrated enough, or eaten enough, or taken much of a too, let myself rest enough before just trying to smash up to the top. And I just all of a sudden it was like I hit a wall, got hit with just exhaustion, and and then the cold. I mean, it was freezing. It was definitely below freezing, possibly below zero with the wind chill. The wind was whipping. I didn't have the right crampons. My crampons kept needing to be readjusted, and I just was like, I don't think I'm gonna keep going forward. And then when I started thinking that way, I realized I was like really pissed at myself for not getting to the summit. But then I was like, why? Why do I want to get to the top of this mountain? And I was sitting there being like, I didn't have a good reason. I'm like, it's not a speed run, it's not a first ascent. It doesn't matter. Not like those would even matter anyway. And I was sitting there like 18,000 feet. I mean, it's the tallest mountain in the whole country of Mexico, and you have this incredible view. And I'm sitting there on the mountain, and people even just at the bottom of the glacier look like ants. And I was just sitting there being like, well, if I don't care about doing this, like, what am I supposed to care about? And it just hit me from the inside. It was just like, finish writing your book. And I was, damn, that's what I need to do. I was like, I got all the way up, almost up to the top of this mountain, when I realized I was just procrastinating in life with my book. And I was stuck, and I was trying to figure something out, and I couldn't really. Like, I was really trying to figure out why my actions mattered. Like, why did this all make sense? Why did my life matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, I was trying to answer that question in a way that I felt good about, that made sense. In a way that if I have a son and he encounters those issues, that I'll be able to explain it to him. Like if I have a son and he runs into that same issue, and he comes to me with a question, I don't just go. I'm actually able to answer it, because I had considered just giving up on trying to figure out, to come to terms with this issue, as stupid as it is to embark on something like that. But in a sense, like, it's cliche to, oh, what's the point of life? But it's also, I mean, what's the point of life? Like, I would like to know. Because I consider just kind of like giving up and just living normal life and just try and stop thinking about it. But what I just said, like, it really hit me. Like, I did, what if my son was hit with that, the weight of that, the question like I had, and I was like, oh, I ran into that as well, and I pussied out. It just was unacceptable. I didn't feel like I could have kids until I figured out that issue. And I would say I figured that out in short by I experienced a religious experience. If you look up the varieties of religious experience by William James, on the Penguin edition cover, I believe it is, there's like a vortex. I saw that. There's something very similar to that during my religious experience, and a lot of accounts in that book lined up with what I experienced. And I had owned that book when I had a religious experience, but I had never read it. It wasn't until after I had this experience I was like, I'm going to check out this book, and it was very heavy to read it. And um, and during that experience, in short, I just felt like I was essentially admonished by God, if you will, to stop asking such heavy questions. Or actually, I felt like the answers were being dumped into my mind and it was too heavy, and I was like, actually, please stop with this. This is too much. And I felt like God was admonishing me, being like, yeah, cool your jets. You don't need to know the answers to you don't need to know the grand scheme of things. Just shut up, focus on what you need to do. Don't worry about what I'm doing. Just focus on what you need to do and you need to say, and that will keep you sufficiently busy. Toodaloo. It was a very powerful experience, and ever since then, I felt like I was able to proceed in life and just give up the fight on needing to give up the fight on dealing with that question. And like God wins or whatever. I relented. He who wrestles with God, Jordan Peterson's book. I haven't read it. I would like to, but maybe it was something like that. And so then I was able to finish writing my book, and then right at the end of the book, I finished writing my book, and I put this verse in it. I believe it's Jeremiah 23:19. You will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. And I think that I really had been trying to understand what the meaning of life is. Like, I was really going for it. I was not just living within my social boundaries. I was going for it. And it felt like I found God, whatever. I had a religious experience because of how I was living. Because in action, I was trying to seek out the answers. I was trying to essentially find God. It's the same thing, I think. What's the purpose of life, and God? It's the same thing. And I put that verse in my book. Like, all right, I'm done with this draft. It's going to the editor. Whatever. I put that verse in, and I picked up a devotional thing to do with my now wife, and that verse was in the devotional. Like, this has happened in, like, I literally closed my laptop, picked up the devotional, and boom, and I just put it in, and then it was just right there. Very synchronistic. Carl Jung. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like, nothing was really like clarified, other than it's like there's something going on. Your life is important. Like, you're here, and you need to do what you need to do, and you need to figure it out. Adios. And because I feel like at a certain point, there has to be a leap of faith. You have to make a leap of faith, and it's going to be either big or small, and you're probably going to have to do it again, make multiple leaps of faith. And I feel like the you have to make these leaps, and you have to find answers that are good enough for you, at least to move forward. Maybe I'll have major changes, perspective changes, or whatever in the future. But for right now, I just need to focus on today and making this video, and that's it. And for right now, that's all I can do. Tomorrow is not given. And just being accepting that there's much that I don't know and will never know, and to keep moving forward. Anyway, peace and love.